This is a poem called Rebecca, who slammed doors for fun and perished miserably. It's from a book called Cautionary Verses by Hilaire Belloc. A trick that everyone abhors in little girls is slamming doors. A wealthy banker's little daughter, who lived in Palace Green, Bayswater, by name Rebecca Offendort, was given to this furious sport. She would deliberately go and slam the door like Billy Ho to make her Uncle Jacob start. She was not really bad at heart, but only rather rude and wild. She was an aggravating child. It happened that a marble bust of Abraham was standing just above the door this little lamb had carefully prepared to slam, and down it came. It knocked her flat. It laid her out. She looked like that. Her funeral sermon, which was long and followed by a sacred song, mentioned her virtues, it is true, but dwelt upon her vices too, and showed the dreadful end of one who goes and slams the door for fun. The children who were brought to hear the awful tale from far and near were much impressed, and inly swore they nevermore would slam the door as often they had done before. Well, these are short poems from a book called Opposites, More Opposites, and a Few Differences by Richard Wilbur. The opposite of standing still is walking up or down a hill, running backwards, creeping, crawling, leaping off a cliff and falling, turning somersaults in gravel or any other mode of travel. The opposite of squash. Offhand, I'd say that it might be expand, enlarge, uncrumple, or inflate. However, on a dinner plate, with yellow vegetables and green, the opposite of squash is bean. The opposite of donut? Wait a minute while I meditate. This isn't easy. Ah, I've found it. A cookie with a hole around it. What is the opposite of Cupid? If you don't know, you're pretty stupid. It's someone with a crossbow who delights in shooting darts at you, not with the kind intention of persuading you to fall in love, but to be mean and make you shout, "I hate you, ouch," and cut it out. What is the opposite of prince? A frog must be the answer, since, as all good fairy stories tell, when some witch says a magic spell, causing the prince to be disguised so that he won't be recognized, he always ends up green and sad and sitting on a lily pad. The opposite of duck is drake. Remember that for heaven's sake. One's female and the other's male. In writing to a drake, don't fail to start your letter off, "Dear Sir." "Dear Madam" is what ducks prefer. In snowball fights, the opposite of duck, of course, is getting hit. This poem is called Advice to Travelers by Walker Gibson. A burro once sent by express, his shipping ticket on his bridle, ate up his name and his address. And in some warehouse, standing idle, he waited till he liked to die. The moral hardly needs the showing. Don't keep things locked up deep inside. Say who you are and where you're going. This poem is called The Microscope by Maxine Kumin. Anton Leeuwenhoek was Dutch. He sold pincushions, cloth, and such. The waiting townsfolk turned and fussed as Anton's dry goods gathered dust. He worked, instead of tending store, at grinding special lenses for a microscope. Some of the things he looked at were mosquitoes' wings, the hairs of sheep, the legs of lice, the skin of people, dogs and mice, ox eyes, spiders' spinning gear, fish's scales, a little smear of his own blood, and best of all, the unknown, busy, very small bugs that swim and bump and hop inside a simple water drop. Impossible, most Dutchmen said. This Anton's crazy in the head. We ought to ship him off to Spain. He says he's seen a housefly's brain. He says the water that we drink is full of bugs. He's mad, we think. They called him Dummkopf, which means dope. That's how we got the microscope. This poem is called Forgetfulness by Billy Collins. The name of the author is the first to go, followed obediently by the title, the plot, the heartbreaking conclusion, the entire novel, which suddenly becomes one you have never read, never even heard of. As if, one by one, the memories you used to harbor decided to retire to the southern hemisphere of the brain, to a little fishing village where there are no phones. Long ago, you kissed the names of the 9 muses goodbye and watched the quadratic equation pack its bag, and even now, as you memorize the order of the planets, something else is slipping away, a state flower perhaps, the address of an uncle, the capital of Paraguay. Whatever it is you are struggling to remember, it is not poised on the tip of your tongue, or even lurking in some obscure corner of your spleen. It has floated away down a dark mythological river whose name begins with an L as far as you can recall. Well on your own way to oblivion, where you will join those who have even forgotten how to swim and how to ride a bicycle. No wonder you rise in the middle of the night to look up the date of a famous battle in a book on war. No wonder the moon in the window seems to have drifted out of a love poem that you used to know by heart. One of my sons recommended this one. It's called Nursery Rhyme of Innocence and Experience by Charles Causley. I had a silver penny and an apricot tree, and I said to the sailor on the white quay, "Sailor, oh sailor, will you bring me, if I give you my penny and my apricot tree, a fez from Algeria, an Arab drum to beat, a little gilt sword, and a parakeet?" And he smiled and he kissed me as strong as death, and I saw his red tongue and felt his sweet breath. You may keep your penny and your apricot tree, and I'll bring your presents back from the sea. Oh, the ship dipped down on the rim of the sky, and I waited while 3 long summers went by. Then one still morning on the white quay, I saw a gray ship come in from the sea. Slowly she came across the bay, with her flashing rigging was shot away, and all around her wake the seabirds cried, and flew in and out of the hole in her side. Slowly she came in the path of the sun, and I heard the sound of a distant gun. And a stranger came running up to me from the deck of the ship, and he said he, "Oh, are you the boy who would wait on the quay with the silver penny and the apricot tree? I've a plum-colored fez and a drum for thee, and a sword and a parakeet from over the sea." Oh, where is the sailor with the bold red hair, and what is that volley on the bright air? Oh, where are the other girls and boys, and why have you brought me children's toys?
If I Were in Charge of the World by Judith Forrest. If I were in charge of the world, I'd cancel oatmeal, Monday mornings, allergy shots, and also Sarah Steinberg. If I were in charge of the world, there'd be brighter nightlights, healthier hamsters, and basketball baskets 48 inches lower. If I were in charge of the world, you wouldn't have lonely and you wouldn't have clean. You wouldn't have bedtimes or don't punch your sister. You wouldn't even have sisters. If I were in charge of the world, a chocolate sundae with whipped cream and nuts would be a vegetable, and 007 movies would be G. And a person who sometimes forgets to brush and sometimes forgot to flush would still be allowed to be in charge of the world. Since Hannah moved away, the tires on my bike are flat, the sky is grouchy gray. At least it sure feels like that since Hannah moved away. Chocolate ice creams taste like prunes. December's come to stay. They've taken back the Mays and Junes since Hannah moved away. Flowers smell like halibut. Velvet feels like hay. Every handsome dog's a mutt since Hannah moved away. Nothing's fun to laugh about, nothing's fun to play. They call me, but I won't come since Hannah moved away.
Being a bee
is a joy.
is a pain.
I'm a queen.
I'm a worker. I'll gladly explain.
Upon rising, I'm fed by my royal attendants.
I'm up at dawn, guarding the hive's narrow entrances.
I'm bathed.
Then I take out the hive's morning trash.
I'm grown.
And then I put in an hour making wax without 2 minutes' time to sit still and relax.
The rest of my day is quite simply set forth.
And then I might collect nectar from the fields 3 miles north.
I lay eggs.
Or perhaps I'm on larva duty,
By the 100.
feeding the grubs in their cells, wishing that I were still helpless and pale.
I'm loved and I'm lauded. I'm outranked by none.
And then I pack combs with pollen, not my idea of fun.
When I've done enough laying,
Then weary I strive
I retire
to patch up any cracks in the hive.
for the rest of the day.
Then I build some new cells, slaving away at enlarging this hell, dreading the sight of another sunrise, wondering why we don't all unionize. Truly a bee is the worst of all lives. These poems are by Eve Merriam from Blackberry Ink. Bella had a new umbrella, didn't want to lose it. So when she walked out in the rain, she didn't ever use it. Her nose went sniff, her shoes went squish, her socks grew soggy, her glasses got foggy, her pockets filled with water and a little green froggy. And all she could speak was a weak "Kitchoo," but Bella's umbrella stayed nice and new. Gooseberry, juiceberry, looseberry jam. Spread it on crackers, spread it on bread. Try not to spread it onto your head. Gooseberry, juiceberry, looseberry jam. No matter how neatly you try to bite in, it runs like a river right down your chin. Gooseberry, juiceberry, looseberry jam. I have a little doggy, and his name is Fetch. Fetch my slippers, fetch my socks, fetch my rocker and my music box. Fetch my teacup, fetch my pot, fetch my hot plate and keep it hot. Fetch my glasses, fetch my book. I'll turn the pages, but you can look. Fetch my needle, fetch my thread, fetch my pajamas, then take me to bed.
I'm going to read a poem from the Random House Book of Poetry, which was well loved in my household when my kids were little, as you can see by its condition. And this poem is Rules by Carla Cuskin, who's was a children's book author, wrote Watch the Philharmonic Get Dressed, which was an adorable picture book. But I love her poetry. Rules. Do not jump on ancient uncles. Do not yell at average mice. Do not wear a broom to breakfast. Do not ask a snake's advice. Do not bathe in chocolate pudding. Do not talk to bearded bears. Do not smoke cigars on sofas. Do not dance on velvet chairs. Do not take a whale to visit Russell's mother's cousin's yacht. And whatever else you do, it is better you do not. I'm going to read a poem called Daddy Fell into the Pond by Alfred Noyes, who is actually much better known for a poem called The Highwayman, which if any of you have seen Anne of Green Gables, she recites beautifully. But it has a very sad and tragic ending, so we're doing Daddy Fell into the Pond. Everyone grumbled. The sky was gray. We had nothing to do and nothing to say. We were nearing the end of a dismal day, and there seemed to be nothing beyond. Then, Daddy fell into the pond. And everyone's face grew merry and bright, and Timothy danced for sheer delight. Give me the camera, quick, oh quick, he's crawling out of the duckweed. Click. Then the gardener suddenly slapped his knee and doubled up, shaking silently, and the ducks all quacked as if they were daft, and it sounded as if the old drake laughed. Oh, there wasn't a thing that didn't respond when Daddy fell into the pond.
I'm going to read a poem called Once by Peter Hart. Once when I was younger, someone very special made me a wondrous gift. I didn't know why or care that much. I just loved it, and it warmed me. I didn't know why the pieces fit together. Some were beautiful, some less so, and some just hard to understand. But I loved it, even the parts that didn't seem to fit. Altogether, it was glorious and held my heart. I'm sorry my pieces don't always fit or make sense or are beautiful, but I want to hold your heart like your quilt held me long after I thought you were gone forever. And this one's called Slowly, again by Peter Hart. Slowly realizing, not at all surprising, I'm very close to old. Feeling better than ever, without a mental waver, but aging nonetheless. It's not so sad, really, no need for touchy-feely, but it did sneak up on me. Maybe it's Wiley's youth, maybe me long in the tooth, or maybe it's the mold. Either way, it matters not sad to get where I got, but it's still surprising. This one is The Llama Who Had No Pajama by Marianne Hoberman. The llama who had no pajama was troubled and terribly sad when it became known that he had outgrown every pair of pajamas he had. And he tearfully said to his mother, in a voice that was deep with despair, "Oh, lamely mamma, I need a pajama, or what in the world shall I wear? Or what in the world, in the Wumberly world will I wear?" The llama, who had no pajama, looked up at the evening sky. "It will soon," he said, "be time for bed, and all will be sleeping but I, and all will be sleeping but I, and all will be sleeping but I." "For how can a llama go bare to bed," the little pajamaless llama said, "when the rest of the world of the Wumberly world all are wearing pretty pajamas?" The poor little llama, sad mama, got out her needle and thread. "I'll try to enlarge your pajama," the llama, sad mama said. And she stitched and she sewed those pajamas till she ran out of plum-colored thread. But they still were too small for the llama. "Oh, what will we do?" Mama said. "For you must have a pair of pajamas, as you cannot go naked to bed. But where in the world, in the Wumberly world, will you find you a pair of pajamas?" They looked in each nook and each cranny. They looked on each hillock and mound. And though they saw bathrobes and bonnets, pajamas were not to be found. The clock struck 7:15. The llama lay down on the ground. "I know I won't sleep," he sniffed sadly, and his nose made a staying up sound. But he did sleep. He dozed off at 7, and he slept for the rest of the night. And when he woke up in the morning, to his mama he said with delight, "What a wonderful sleep I've been sleeping all night. My head feels so clear and my eyes feel so bright. When we looked for pajamas, how foolish we were. Why, I sleep so much better in nothing but fur. It fits me so nicely, it's light as the air. It's the practical thing for a llama to wear. And since goats don't wear coats, and doves don't wear gloves, and cocks don't wear socks, and bats don't wear hats, well, why in the world, in the Wumberly world, would llamas be wearing pajamas?"
This poem is out of Joyful Noise, Poems for Two Voices by Paul Fleischman, and it's called Water Striders. Whenever we're asked if we walk upon water, we answer,
of course.
to be sure.
That's quite true.
Whenever we're asked if we walk in it often, we answer, quite often,
Each day.
all day through. Should we be questioned on whether it's easy, we answer,
quite easy.
a snap.
It's a cinch.
Should we be told
That
it's
it's
surely a miracle, we reply, balderdash.
Rubbish.
Nonsense. Whenever we're asked for instructions, we always say,
come to the pond's edge.
and do as we do,
Put down one foot,
and then another.
resting upon the thin film on the surface.
Believe me, there's no call to at all be nervous.
As long as you're reasonably mindful that you,
But by that time, our student, no matter how prudent, has usually
don't ask me why,
sunk from view. These are poems by Eve Miriam from a book called Blackberry Ink. I'm sweet, says the beet.
Don't be a goop, says the soup.
Hey, I'm boss, says the sauce.
I'll give you a poke, says the artichoke.
Oh, no, says the dough.
Go jump in the lake, says the chocolate cake.
I mean, says the bean.
Please, please, says the cheese. Cat's tongue, pink as clover.
Lick your whiskers, smooth your fur, prick up your ears and purr, purr, purr.
Cat's tongue, wash all over.
Cat's tongue, pink as clover.
Lick your paws, lick your face, the back of your neck in every place.
Cat's tongue, clean all over. This poem is from Snoop on the Sidewalk and Other Poems by Jack Perletsky. The Grobbles. The Grobbles are gruesome, the Grobbles are green, the Grobbles are nasty, the Grobbles are mean. The Grobbles hide deep in a hollowy tree, just waiting to gobble whomever they see. I walk through the woods, for I'm quite unaware that the Grobbles are waiting to gobble me there. They suddenly spring from their hollowy tree. Oh, goodness, the Grobbles are gobbling. This poem is from Still More Small Poems by Valerie Worth. Door. My grandmother's glass front door held a fancy pattern of panes, their heavy edges cut on a slant. When sun shone through, they scattered some 80 little flakes of rainbows into the room, walking the walls, glowing like fallen flowers on the floor. Why don't they make front doors like that anymore? A poem from the book called What a Wonderful Bird the Frog Are, an assortment of humorous poetry and verse edited by Myra Cohen Livingston. The Dinosaur. Behold the mighty dinosaur, famous in prehistoric lore, not only for his weight and strength, but for his intellectual length. You will observe by these remains the creature has 2 sets of brains, and one in his head, the usual place, and the other at his spinal base. And thus he could reason a priori as well as a posteriori. No problem bothered him a bit. He made both head and tail of it. So wise was he, so wise and solemn. Each thought filled just a spinal column. If one brain found the pressure strong, it passed a few ideas along. If something slipped his forward mind, 'twas rescued by the one behind. And if in error he was caught, he had a saving afterthought. And he thought twice before he spoke. He had no judgments to revoke, for he could think, without congestion, upon both sides of every question. Oh, gaze upon the model beast, defunct 10 million years at least. Beloved Poems from Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. The Crocodile's Toothache. The crocodile went to the dentist and sat down in the chair, and the dentist said, "Now tell me, sir, where does it hurt and where?" And the crocodile said, "I'll tell you the truth, I've a terrible ache in my tooth." And he opened his jaws so wide, that the dentist he climbed right inside. And the dentist laughed, "Oh, isn't this fun?" as he pulled out his tooth one by one. And the crocodile cried, "Oh, oh, you're hurting me so. Please put down your pliers and let me go." But that dentist just laughed with a ho, 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 and he said, "I still have 12 to go. Oops, that's the wrong one, I confess. But what's one crocodile's tooth more or less?" And then suddenly the jaws went snap, and the dentist was gone right off the map. And where he went, one could only guess, to north or south or east or west. He left no forwarding address. But what's one more dentist or less? Skinny. Skinny McGinn was so terribly thin that while taking his bath Sunday night, out plopped the plug, and swoosh, swoosh, and glug, glug, it washed Skinny right down the drain out of sight. And where is our dear Skinny bathing tonight? In some underground pool down below, or up there so high in that tub in the sky where all the clean people go. Boa constrictor. Oh, oh, I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor. A boa constrictor. A boa constrictor. I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor, and I don't like it one bit. Well, what do you know? It's nibbling my toe. Oh, gee, it's up to my knee. Oh, my, it's up to my thigh. Oh, fiddle, it's up to my middle. Oh, heck, it's up to my neck. Oh, dread, it's...
The Piggy in the Puddle. The words by Charlotte Promenade. See the piggy in the puddle, see the muddy little puddle, see the piggy in the middle of the muddy little puddle. See her doddle, see her diddle in the muddy, muddy middle, see her waddle plump and little in the very merry middle. See her daddy, fuddy, daddy, fuddy, daddy, fuddy, daddy. Don't you get all muddy, 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 muddy. You are much too plump and little to be in the muddy middle. Mud is squishy, mud is squashy, mud is oh so squishy, squashy. What you need is lots of soap. But the piggy answered, squishy, squashy, squishy, squashy, nope. See her mommy, fiddle, faddle, fiddle, faddle, fiddle, faddle. Get out of there, skedaddle, daddle, daddle. You are much too plump and little to be in the muddy middle. Mud is mushy, mud is squishy, mud is oh so mushy, squishy. What you need is lots of soap. But the piggy answered, mushy, squishy, nope. See her brother, silly Billy, silly Billy, silly Billy. Do not waddle, silly Billy, willy-nilly, willy-nilly. You are much too plump and little to be in the muddy middle. Mud is oofy, mud is puffy, mud is oofy, puffy, but you need is lots of soap. But the piggy answered, oofy, puffy, nope. Now they all stood in the huddle right beside the muddy puddle, and they looked into the puddle. What a muddy, muddy muddle! There was Piggy, plump and little, in the very merry middle. She was waddling, she was paddling, she was diving way down dairy, she was wiggling, she was giggling. She was very, very merry. Said the piggy, little piggy, you have made me very mad. Said the father, little piggy, you have made me very sad. Little piggy, said the brother, you are very, very bad. Said the piggy, squishy, squashy, mushy, squishy, very bad. Dear, oh dear, said Piggy's mother, what's a mother pig to do? She thought and thought and thought and thought, and then of course she knew. She said, I bet my feet get wet, and jumped in too. See two piggies in the puddle, in the muddy little puddle. See the piggy and her mommy in the muddy little puddle. Me oh my, said Piggy's father, what's a father pig to do? He thought and thought and thought and thought, and then of course he knew. He said, I bet my tail gets wet, and jumped in too. See three piggies in the puddle, in the muddy little puddle. See mommy, daddy, piggy in the muddy little puddle. Boo-hoo, cried Piggy's brother, whatever shall I do? He thought, but not for very long, because of course he knew. He held his nose and yelled, here goes, and jumped in too. See four piggies in the puddle, in the muddy little puddle. See the piggies in the middle of the muddy little puddle. See them diddle, big and little, in the very merry middle. Said the daddy, mud is squishy, mud is oh so squishy, squashy. Said the mommy, mud is mushy, mud is oh so squishy, whooshy. Said the brother, mud is oofy, mud is oh so oofy, puffy. Said the piggy, squishy, squashy, mushy, squishy, oofy, puffy. Indeed, said little piggy, I think we all need some soap. But the other piggies answered, oofy, puffy, nope.